The Oklahoma City Thunder absolutely steal one on the road in Dallas. Has the series swung?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and SI Thunder beat writer Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, the Oklahoma City Thunder steal, just absolutely steal, rob a game in Dallas, knotting up the series 2-2. Is this series swinging back in the direction of the young pups, or was this an anomaly? We'll talk about it all coming up on today's show. That is brought to you by FanDuel. Check out FanDuel.com right now. Make every moment more. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with the winning of $5 bet at FanDuel.com/lockdown to get started. What a game. There are so many twists and turns in these playoff games, and the biggest twist was that the difference in teams that go on to have a ton of success and the difference in teams that win series like this is stealing games on the road. And you absolutely stole one in Dallas. Folks, there's no sugarcoating it. The Thunder played awful basketball for the majority of this game. They were outclassed. They were outmanned. They were outmatched. They just did not have it. And that's evident by the fact that they shot 30% from the floor, 29%, 25% from three, I should say, and 95% from the free throw line. They shot 38, 25, 95, and they won a basketball game in the playoffs against Luka and Kyrie. That's just unbelievable. They got back on track defensively, which is crazy to say, as they've been so good defensively. But this was another game in which you held the Mavericks under 100 points. 95 points in game one, 96 points here in game four, bookending a 2-2 series draw. You've now stolen back home court advantage. It's a best of three with games 5 and 7 in OKC. But the Thunder did not play well in this game. They found a way to win, though. Their defense kept them close. The largest Mavericks lead was 14 points, which felt insurmountable throughout the majority of this game. But OKC had their run. SGA had clutch time answers. And finally, you start hitting shots. They made 3 threes in the first 3 quarters. They made 4 in the fourth. So the tides changed in the fourth quarter. Now, can that translate into game 5? Can that translate into game 6 and possibly game 7? That's yet to be seen. But certainly the Thunder played their best basketball in the fourth quarter when it mattered the most after playing horribly for the majority of this game. But that's what great teams do. The difference in good and great teams is winning games like this on the road. Now, you've got to go make this matter. You've got to go win game 5, and you've got to go make this matter. But if I told you last Sunday, the say it out loud test of you'd be heading home, having just stolen a game in Dallas where you shot 38, 25, 95 against Luka and Kyrie, you'd feel really, really good. Look, the pathway to get here was incredibly tough. But this series was always going to have ups and downs. And you were silly to pick either team in less than 6 or 7 games. But to win a game like this, where you have PJ Washington be the leading scorer at 21 points, not 27, not 29, 21 points, still a phenomenal game from him. 5 for 11 from 3. Great job by PJ Washington. But Kyrie has 9 again. Luka has 18 on 20 shots. 18 on 20 shots. He made 6 shots from the floor. He had 7 turnovers. That's just special, special defense. Holding these Mavericks to 96 points is special, special defense. And this can be all over the place because, winning this game should not neglect everything that happened leading up to the win. But it should accentuate it. as like, yes, you did not play good, but you found your formula. You found the right guys, I think. Like you put in Kenrich Williams in the rotation. You have Kenrich, Wallace, Joe, Williams, Wiggins off the bench with the normal starting five. You start the second half with Isaiah Joe. And you have the formula. Look, I don't want you to react to this before the thought's finished. For those of you on either side of the aisle, Josh Giddey or anti-Josh Giddey. Coming out of the halftime break with your back against the wall and your season on the line, to put Josh Giddey on the bench is a clear indication of what you feel like in your heart of hearts is the very best option for this team, is the very best chance to get back into contests. And you have to understand and not let this win fool anyone or fool any person. Most importantly, of course, the Thunder, who are not going to take advice from me. But this is an anomaly. You cannot get from behind against the Dallas Mavericks and play catch up. You saw that the last 3 games. You have a 3-1 sample size now, because playing catch up is nearly impossible against Dallas. Because all you need if you're Dallas is a couple timely shots from your role players, and then match tough shot for tough shot down the stretch with Luka and Kyrie. The Mavericks actually got the role player shots, like Tim Hardaway Jr.'s massive 3, PJ Washington's 3. Like they got the role player shots in this one to keep the Thunder at bay and to hang around, but they did not get their superstar performances in the clutch from Luka and Kyrie. How often is that going to happen? I don't think it'll happen 2 out of the next 3. So like you've got to give yourself every possible chance to start fast, to play from ahead, and to at minimum play even. By that same token, Josh Giddey did play much better off the bench in the second half. Now that could be a coincidence or not, but the bottom line is you haven't given yourself the chance to see if that's a coincidence or not, because you haven't benched him. And so I think that Josh played well in this game individually at times, but not out of the gate. And you just cannot afford another slow start. He had a plus minus of +6 in 12 minutes. Still, though, you have to change that, just as you did in the second half. Whenever push came to shove and you were in danger of losing this season that you've worked so hard for, you got 57 wins, and you have a legitimate shot, you benched him. That attitude, I don't think, should change in Game 5. I don't think that they'll bench Josh Giddey, but in my opinion, like this win does not alleviate all problems. Another thing that the Thunder did in this game, they flipped the switch. We'll see if it ends up winning them the series and going to the Western Conference Finals. We'll see. But throughout the course of these last 3 games, the Thunder were absolutely just done in by Dallas. Dallas was the more fiery team. They're the more competitive team. They're the more effort-giving team. They're the more talking team. They were talking trash. They're letting you know about it. They're working the officials, fighting for their guys, fighting for their calls, getting their calls. And then today, they get up 14. They get up big. They feel like they've won this game, which in turn wins the series in all likelihood. Even though there's been some anomalies recently, this has still only happened 12 times. They come back from 3-1. You feel like you've gotten in control, and PJ Washington starts talking, calling, players a little on the Thunder. And Kenny Hustle, who you've put in place of Gordon, did exactly what we've talked about Kenrich Williams doing on this podcast and anywhere I've ever had a microphone. He did not let that slide. Double technical foul for Kenny Hustle. I don't think it's any surprise that it finally sank in for this young team what it means to play in this moment after that double tech. Because then you had a phantom call on Lou Dort, and Lou Dort was livid with the officiating after that call. And then you had a J-Dub and one where J-Dub finally, for the first time this series, looked like who he would call Dub. Where he goes and gets the and one, and he pours into the Thunder bench and just lets out this Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan-esque fist pump and screams at his teammates, like just fired up. Now, I don't know why it took needing to be woken up, but you've certainly rattled cages in Oklahoma City tonight. From this laissez-faire attitude that they had after going down 2-1 in the series to this lethargical look that they had for the majority of Game 4. At the end of Game 4 in the fourth quarter, they looked like the Thunder. They looked true to their identity. They look like who they say they are. They look like who they've been in execution. through the 82-game season. And so now it's a series again. It's 2-2. You head home. And as always, Game 5 is a pivotal one. Where does this series go from here? And we have to talk about Shai's masterful game. We have to talk about it all on today's show. But first, let's say right now, but our good friends over at FanDuel. Check out FanDuel right now because FanDuel is incredible. With right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with the winning of any $5 bet. That's $150 whenever you bet on the spreads, money line, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more right now and make your playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You can check out FanDuel, who had the Thunder as like a +1 on the road, which is basically a pick 'em for the road team in this game. The early line in Game 5, a must-win, is a -4. -4, OKC is the favorite in the Paycom Center against the Dallas Mavericks on Wednesday. Go check it out today at FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can go and enjoy $150 in bonus bets with a $5 moneyline bet. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. This Thunder team got a massive win, and we kind of did some of the overarching themes. We'll keep doing that as the show goes on, but we can go no further than talking about SGA. Like, SGA has to be the story from this game as the straw that stirs the drink, as the guy who performed throughout the season, but throughout this series and throughout this game. On his way to 34 points, Shai was masterful. 34 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. What you got from Shai in 41 minutes was that of a number one option, was that of a killer, was that of a guy who can lead a franchise. You got Shai hitting these behind the backboard shots that are just, he leads the league in them, but every time that he does it, it's more impressive than the last. Like, unreal. 0 for 2 at the rim and gets his damage done outside of the paint, as the Mavericks have been phenomenal defensively. Like, hat tip to the Mavericks. Like, keeping the Thunder at 100 points. They've been awesome at protecting the rim, using their physicality, crowding the paint. But tonight, the Thunder were able to muster up just enough. But it's a limited Shai in the sense of his driving abilities. But still, Shai gets 34 points. Hit tough mid-range shots against high-quality Mavericks defense, so you got to tip your cap to him. And it was just his night. But what was interesting to see from Shai was that some of his plays came from a lack of doing too much. So, like, we talked in the first segment all about how the Thunder played terribly and won this game, and that through the first 3 quarters, they were awful, right? And you're the superstar of the team, and your team's about to go down 3-1, which is a death sentence for most teams, but you'd imagine a death sentence especially for a young team that's never been in this position before in the playoffs against 2 guys who have closed out many a series, including the NBA Finals for Kyrie. Naturally, your human instinct says, I'm the only guy playing well. I'm the max contract guy. I'm the superstar. I'm the MVP. It's on me. That's naturally your instincts. These guys have been missing shots. As a collective unit, you're shooting 28% from 3. It's me in the fourth quarter. The majority of the time, like Toby Keith or RIP. But instead, Shai continues to spray the ball out. Continues to find his teammates. And he goes against an overzealous paint defense of the Mavs as they collapse on him, kicks it out to Lou Dort in the corner, wide open, splash. He drives in at the nail, turns around, finds Chet as a trailer, top of the key, splash. Shots you do not win this game without those shots, frankly. As evident by a 100-96 win. Like, his unselfishness is massive. It's just what you want to see as he continues to get better at balancing that unselfishness of, like, not being too unselfish, still knowing that, like, you're the MVP, you're the guy, so your good shot's better than somebody else's great shot more often than not, or even average shot better than somebody else's good shot, but also not completely shutting out the outside noise and the outside world offensively, even as they have bad games. Like Ludort was 3 for 10 tonight. You do not win without that last three. You just don't from beyond the arc. Chet's 1-3 of the game was that massive trailing three, which got changed to a 2. So his 1-3 of the game was that corner 3, I should say. That pulled the Thunder up ahead 3. So still a massive shot. Like, you continued to trust in these guys. Rookies, Chet and Cason Wallace. Cason Wallace was 2 for 2 with huge threes to pull the Thunder within 3. You trust in these guys, no matter their experience, no matter their output on the game, and it pays off. It pays off down the stretch of this one. But Shai was in control tonight. He didn't panic on the court. And he was just stellar. He did say after the game that, like, PJ Washington is shooting the piss out of the ball, and that he had to yell at Cason Wallace out of confusion of, like, why he doubled, left PJ open in that scenario, down whenever they were down 3, wanting to foul. And then he did apologize to Cason because that was his only mistake of the game, and he felt bad for yelling at him in that moment. But still, like, that emotional leadership, that intensity, that's what you need. And that's what you need to bring for the Thunder. They brought it in the fourth quarter. They finally brought it. The switch finally flipped. The intensity switch flipped. But you have to sustain that in game 3 and beyond. In game 5 and beyond to win this series and to climb that mountaintop, which, you know, it sounds crazy considering where the vibes were after Friday. It sounds crazy for the fan base. But the reality is, as you see the Cavs push the Celtics without Donovan Mitchell, without Jarrett Allen, the reality is anything's on the table for any of these teams. Like, any of these teams can go win a championship. It's not been more wide open than this, truly. And that same thing goes for the Dallas Mavericks. That's why game 5 is going to be so massive. But who comes out on fire in game 5? I think that the team that calls the first time out is going to be in deep trouble, especially if the Thunder can finally start fast. If the Thunder finally start fast and get that crowd into it early, and Jason Kidd needs a timeout, and then those thoughts creep into your head if you're Dallas of, like, could have put the series away practically on Monday. But now here we are, Paycom Center. It's rocking. It's the loudest crowd in the NBA. It's just overflowing now. This young team is with confidence. They're hitting tough shots. They're now comfortable. You can start to have those thoughts creep in and compound the problem. And then before you know it, things spiral. That's why stealing games on the road is so big. That's why only great teams steal games on the road, especially whenever this is what's at stake. And the Thunder did it, and now they've given themselves a shot. And if I told you back in October that if you sign here, you're going to get a 57-win season, you're going to get the number 1 overall seed, the youngest 1 seed of all time in the Western Conference, you're going to get Shai second MVP, you're going to get a leap from J-Dub, you're going to have Chet be everything that you thought he was, and you're going to have a shot at a best of 3 versus the Dallas Mavericks to go to your first Western Conference Finals since 2016, you would rip the paper with how furiously you signed on the dotted line. So as frustrating as today was, as frustrating as the last 3 games were, as frustrating as it all was, this is what you would sign up for furiously in a good way back in October. Like, you could not get the papers printed fast enough. And this is the first crack at it. This is the first test. This is the first time you can see it. As Mark used to always say, and is still in his rotation of his hits, but it's one of those hits that maybe doesn't get played as much in concert, but you've got to see the pictures. You've got to see what playoff basketball is. And you saw them adjust to it finally. Again, sitting in here, munching on bananas during a question and having a sort of laissez-faire attitude, like, seeing that compared to what you saw at the end of the fourth quarter was a stark difference. And how they handled themselves, how they were composed, and how they're passionate and willing to bring the intensity. The first 3 quarters up until that technical foul, that was a completely different team than what you saw post-technical foul. Like, that was big. At the 8:33 mark in the fourth quarter, things changed as you get a double tech on PJ. and on Kinney. That's when it flipped. I think that that's the moment, playing armchair psychologist, that's whenever the Thunder realized what playoff basketball is, what it takes to win these games on the road. And you had Chet go to the free throw line and silence the crowd. You had SGA execute down the stretch. And you locked in defensively. Like, you did it. You learn from it. You're going to learn from this whole playoff experience, no matter how it ends or when it ends. And like, this is just everything from here. Now that you've avoided a sweep, now that you've avoided a bitter ending of like a 3-1 deficit and a 4-1, game 5 ender, like avoiding all that makes it even especially true that like this is just unreal, because it was already unreal. It was already a special season, fantastic season, even if you got swept by the Mavericks. But now there's no bitter aftertaste. This is going and getting a nice cup of coffee that has no grimy taste afterward. Put a little Italian cream in your coffee this morning for the road. Coming up, let's talk about adjustments. Let's talk about where this series goes from here. But first, I want to say right now, but good friends over at PrizePicks. Check out PrizePicks.com right now, because PrizePicks is great. And when you do, you just have to go there and play the best daily fantasy sports that there are. What you do at PrizePicks is you project if a player will have more or less than their PrizePick projected stats. It's just you versus the numbers, not you versus these ultra competitive, know everything algorithm type of players that just study this stuff cover to cover. It's just you versus the projected numbers. So you can have over under on Shai, 30.5 points on Wednesday. You pick more, and boom, if he has more than 30.5 points, he has 31 or more, you've won that entry. And entries can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, meaning that you can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA playoffs, hockey, MLB, everything there on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. PrizePicks has something for every sports fan, from basketball to hockey and League of Legends, even everything from SGA to Caitlin Clark, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham. Check it out today at PrizePicks right now. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDINNBA for the first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDINNBA for the first deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe for free anywhere you get your podcast from. Wow. What a game this was. It's still tough to process exactly how the Thunder were able to pull off this game. But snatching victory from the jaws of defeat is what separates teams, is what gets you over the hump in these playoff series. Cason Wallace's defense was special. And Cason Wallace stepping up, going 2 for 2 on his only 2 shot attempts, scoring 5 points, was a +6. Only had 1 foul in 18 minutes of playing outstanding world-class defense. Deserves all the major kudos in the world. We talked how Kenny Hustle shifted things. Isaiah Joe in this game went 0 for 3 from 3, but he was still able to have a +2 on the plus minus, as he was able to get some nice rebounds and just space the floor in general as a shooting threat. Wiggins, 2 for 7, a -1 on 6 points, but still played some nice, solid defense. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, like Josh Giddey, it's not a total indictment on him of benching him. Like, benching him does not have to be some dramatic thing. It does not have to be some unceremonious thing. Like, he played better basketball in the second half off the bench. The Thunder play better basketball with him off the floor this series, even as he has a positive plus-minus tonight. You still play him, but now you kind of slide him into that now obsolete Gordon Hayward role, where it's like, this is clearly not a series that Giddey can thrive in overall. Bring him off the bench, see if he has it that night, see if the shot's fallen, whatever. And if not, then you yank him back off the floor as you did Gordon Hayward. But you cannot dig yourself these graves and these holes early, because almost every single time, the Mavericks will make you pay. And you do not want to play with that fire against Kyrie, against Luka, and against these Dallas Mavericks, who can play suffocating defense even against your best offensive lineups, who can knock down tough shots, and who are going to hit their open ones throughout the course of this series. The Mavericks shot 34% from three compared to the Thunder's 25% from three, and they lost this game. The big reason why? Free throws. The Thunder missed one free throw in this one. The Mavericks went 12 of 23 from the charity stripe, including a horrendously bad clutch missed free throw by Luka Doncic. That's killer. That's absolutely killer in a tight game. Here's the thing now, though. You sit at a best of three. Surely to goodness, Kyrie will eventually have a game offensively as a scorer because he's been really good. I know all the Mavs fans, if any of them are still around after flooding the comment section, go to Locked On Mavs and comment Thunder Up on his YouTube section now and kind of retaliate for that. But I know he's been good in other ways. Kyrie has been a pop defender for you. Wow, what a defending effort from Kyrie Irving. Been a heck of a leader, been a heck of a facilitator. But he has not had that huge scoring night. And I really think, surely to goodness, he'll have a huge scoring game at some point this series. So that's baked into the cake of these next three games. Luka has had these massive flashes in these massive games, like 29 points, and like he's been really good. There still is that extra level I think Luka can get to, even for as hurt as he is. So like I think that's baked into the cake of these next three games. How do you counter that? How do you take advantage of any opportunities that you may get? And as the odds say, I really believe Game 5 is going to swing it. Game 5 is going to swing it one way or the other. You come back to Dallas, down 3-2, and you've had 2 days to sit on it, the only 2-day stretch off of the series. You come back to Dallas down 3-2 with this rowdy crowd that's been bringing it, just as the Thunder fans bring it. That's tough sledding, just like it was for the Clippers. You come here up 3-2 with your fans waiting on you in Game 7, should it need to get there. With the Mavericks having these 2 days to think about how just lost Game 5, just gave away Game 4, which could have ended the series practically. Now the wheels are turning. Now the pressure's on you. Now things get tight. This Game 5 is going to swing everything. But it cannot be understated how much stealing this game matters. Because you don't even give yourself a shot if you lose this game. Now you have a shot. Now you're in the dance. Now you have a chance to punch your ticket to the first Western Conference Finals since 2016. At this young stage of your core's careers. And you roll the ball out there and play. It's going to be a riot of a time in Game 5. And a fast start's going to make a massive impact for either side. What adjustments will they be made for the Thunder in Game 5? How can Dallas rebound from this game? We'll talk about all of that on tomorrow's show as we preview Game 5. We have so much content for you with guests and crossovers and recaps all throughout this week as we continue to power through this Western Conference semifinals. This podcast was the absolute most favorite of my career. It's been all over the place. It's been topsy-turvy as there's no outline, there's no script. We're just potting after this thrilling game that I still don't completely understand until I watch it on Synergy about 5 times tomorrow. And if that, I might not even understand it. But what a win. What a game from the Thunder. And I think that like for podcasting daily for teams that won 24 games and 22 games, like this is special stuff being here in Dallas. And I really could not be here without all of you listening, without all of you subscribing. What a great month this has been covering the playoffs. Hopefully it'll continue much longer for OKC. But again, I just want to thank you all. Subscribe to the show for free. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Go and check out SI Thunder to check out all of our written content on this series, on the draft, and everything else that we're doing over there. And until tomorrow, I'm sure we'll have a guest on, or we'll just do your mailbag. We'll do takeaways. We'll do everything. Cram it all in tomorrow. Be good and be good to one another.